Okay, looks like equipment has settled down. Hello, how are you today? I hope you're in good health and secure. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your practice. Thank you for your curiosity and your commitment to your Buddhist practice. Yeah, that's first and foremost. This whole effort is a resource to help increase your confidence through insights, knowledge, shared experience, so that you can achieve your own insights, your aha moments, in the pursuit of maintaining your Buddha mind. That's our goal. Namo Myo Renge Kyo. So, in that, we have started, with the last video, an introduction really, into a group of Gosho, which I hope will explore the concept of karma, which is often misunderstood and is actually a profound building block for the understanding of Shakyamuni's teachings, a proper understanding, as Shakyamuni himself redefined this term. Before Shakyamuni, before Buddhism, karma was more a mishmash of Vedic, Hindu, many interpretations, fundamentally still about, you could say, I don't think they had the concept energy so much as the motive forces, let's say, of life. So related, but understood before Buddhism as something that the high caste, the intellectuals, the religious caste of Indian society pretty much came and outlined for you. Yes, the caste system provided your lot in life. If you were a shoemaker's daughter, well, a shoemaker's son, then a shoemaker you would be, or something beneath that, but never outside of that realm of possibility in your life. And if you were a girl or a woman, as I almost mistakenly identified, you were just, no matter what caste you were in, you were property, chattel, basically. Sorry, but that was then. And then along comes Siddhartha with his enlightenment, and he goes, oh, wait, that thing that has been used societally as a control to tell you who you could be or what you might be within the confines of your slot in society, bullcrap. That's all up to you. You have complete control over that. What? Yeah, you don't think the people that manipulated and controlled society in his day weren't more than a little angry at this upstart young man who thought he knew everything? Yeah, they tried to get rid of him many times, to kill him, right? To end him. Other people in his own family tried to kill him. Yeah, so talk about an uphill battle. Makes you reconsider our modern day whining about our lives, yeah? Yes, Chloe, you're a good girl. Chloe's with me, so if you hear some odd breathing noises, it's my little dog struggling with her messed up nose. But she's okay today, huh? All right. So yeah, karma. It was a big issue when Shakyamuni first started sharing his enlightenment with people. Suddenly you were in control of your life, completely. In fact, not only in control, responsible. Man, I can't overstate how radical that thinking was back then, right? So, over 2,000 years later, over 2,200 years later, along comes another upstart in Japan, name of, well, we know him as Nichiren, right? And he writes several, we know the Gosho is voluminous, right? But with regard to aspects of karma, and there are many, but I chose a few, and I put them in this volume called Nichiren on Mandala. It's available as an ebook on Threefold.com and as a print book on Lulu.com. So, we are today going to start the first letter in that collection, called On Prolonging One's Lifespan. Going to hit a lot of controversial topics here, right? Because it seems like every time I speak on disease, addictions, sickness, there's a flood of, we've been taught all our lives culturally, all over the world, all sorts of magical things about sickness, yeah? And then there's those very pragmatic things about sickness, that if you break a bone, you can suffer through it and always have an arm with a glitch in it, or you can go to a doctor and a specialist and somebody who can set that bone correctly and help aid the healing process, and sometimes still have some glitch in it forever and a day. But sickness and its treatment has followed humankind since, what expert could tell you, right? Tens of thousands of years. Certainly the medical profession gets more and more educated in their own methodologies to this day, and continues to have many mysteries about this incredibly complex organism that we are. And in that, the goal has been for quite some time to somehow lengthen the amount of years we spend in this human form with our emergent mind, right? The thing about aging, the thing about maintaining a life condition or a quality of life. It's not enough to just expand your expected lifespan from 60 years to 80 years to 100 years. Let's live 400 years. Yeah, but if you're going to live 400 years bound to a wheelchair or bed with equipment hooked up to you just to say you can keep your emergent mind going, what's the quality of that mind vis-a-vis the quality of the body, yeah? What is your experience of life? That's kind of a seesaw in the modern centuries, yeah? Yeah. How important is it to be mentally acute and aware to experience life to the full versus barely cognizant of the room we're caged in with life support, blah, 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 right? These questions, they're quite omnipresent in our lives today. Even as a child, you start to have to think about these things. So, a Gosho, written in the medieval age by a Japanese upstart, who's talking about this very thing in relation to Buddhism, it has to cross the threshold of karma, doesn't it? I mean, to what degree can a doctor, a physician, a professional in understanding the workings of the body provide you with an affect, let alone an effect, to your karmic freight train of energies that are running the very energies that put together the atoms, molecules, DNA, RNA, the chemistry of the body that is providing an apparatus for your mind to emerge. It's a complex idea, and it's not one that's... So you have this Buddhist understanding of energy formations and the body, and on the other side you have the medical profession taking apart the physicality. And at what point do they, how close do they come? How much are intertwined? These are the questions we face when we, just from the title, on prolonging one's lifespan. What is lifespan? Man, my nose is really... Apologize. Okay, so here we go. Let's... this is Nichiren now. There are two types of illness, right off the bat. Minor and serious. Oh, didn't expect that division, but okay. That makes sense. Annoying nose is one kind, and paralysis, or, imagine all sorts of dramatic kinds of illness, right? Early treatment by a skilled physician can cure even serious illness, not to mention minor ones. Okay, so kudos to medical professionals. Remember, this is medieval times, so we've been working on this understanding of illness as an illness of the body, not so much a mind, but even then, for centuries, right? Karma also can be divided into two categories, fixed and unfixed. Now, before you, Sylvain, that's not right. We know from our study of Lotus Sutra Buddhism, and Nichiren has told us before, that even immutable karma, another word for fixed, can be influenced, mollified by our constant Buddha mind. Because the Buddha mind understands the formation of everything from the universe, right, free of time, space, to everything happening today, moment to moment. The Buddha mind sees this with clarity. So how is it that something that with that kind of clarity, how could anything fall through the cracks that it wouldn't understand? That's not to mean, it's not magic. It's not that I rub Aladdin's lamp and whew, now I can fix everything. No. The first step to enjoying all of life is to understand all of life. And all of life has some really amazing, wonderful stuff, but it also has some yucky stuff. The difference, the key difference is, are we buried by the yucky stuff and completely paralyzed in our minds by the weight of the yucky stuff? And I realize I'm using very base terms here, but I want to get to a core understanding here. Or can we view the yucky and the brilliant as equal expressions of possibilities and not be hung up, attached to, completely buried by yucky stuff, and understand that to walk upright and experience all of life, our feet may sometimes be soiled. So what? It's part of life. You see how it's so diminished in its import. We don't live mentally in the soles of our feet, though they are essential to support the rest. Buddha-ness clarity of all phenomena is a great equalizer of witnessing the opportunities, the potential of life. And there are far more greater wonders and things to appreciate than there are things, and it's hard to use words here, but understand when we say obstacles or struggles or negative, we're not talking about the karma itself, because karma is just the momentum. But our experience of varied potentials. And this is where attachment comes in. Because when we focus on, vis-a-vis obsess on, certain qualities of potential, we blind ourselves to the rest. This is the samsaric experience. We're so busy identifying muck. What's that muck like? What's it look like? What's it feel like? Is it hot? Is it cold? Is it hurting me? Panic. And we become so focused that our life becomes the muck. Suffering. It's very simple. Enlightenment is simply, oh, muck. Yeah, I got you. But look at all this. Look at how I'm collecting muck. I need to stop doing that. Parent, teacher, sovereign. Parent, teacher, sovereign. Constantly going on in our minds. Qualifying our experience. Buddha-ness allows us to see the entirety of it all the time. So things fall into their proper focus, place. Attachment, not needed. Experience, everything. You see? We've only gotten one or two sentences into this so far. Okay, so fixed and unfixed. They're temporary terms. Using these terms to get a fix on, no pun intended, the spectrum, right? Sincere, now this says repentance. I don't like that word. It's a cultural word. It's a charged, charismatic word. It comes from religion. It doesn't belong in the Buddhist lexicon. But here it is, obviously a translator choosing this word rather than other potential words he could have used. Oh well. Sincere repentance will eradicate even fixed karma, to say nothing of karma that is unfixed. So there it is. Let me interpret that more correctly for us. What does he mean by repentance, right? I'm so sorry. No. Basically, opening our channel of Buddha-ness can eradicate even what would seemingly be fixed karma. Now, I know some of you are going, yeah, but if one leg's shorter than the other, you're not going to fix it by chanting. No, don't confuse the discussion of karma with samsara. If you have one leg shorter than the other, certainly that's a physical reality you're having to negotiate constantly, daily, moment to moment. Got it. You could say that's fixed karma. I wouldn't argue with you. Yes, you're right. But when we're speaking of karma in this life, post your birth through the birth canal and ultimately to your extinction, whenever that is, you could identify that one leg shorter as fixed karma, and no one would argue with you. But understand, when we discuss karma in this conscious life, in the mind, what we're dealing with, what we're talking about, what we're applying our Buddhist enlightenment to is, how do you live your life in light of the physical realms. 3,000 realms in a single thought moment. Constantly keep that in mind. So it isn't so much that one leg is shorter than the other, right? How is it that one person can simply get a shoe insert and live a normal life, and another person is constantly limping and buried mentally with the knowledge that physically they're imperfect? Do you see what I'm getting at here? How do you live your life? Is it a life lived with a constant inventory of physical reality? Because, my friends, that's exactly what Buddhism is trying to unglue you from. Have you ever looked, because I have, I remember as a child seeing people on television with tremendous disabilities, right? Maybe even confined to a wheelchair. And then you see them competing in sports or living their life more fully, by example, than you are yourself. Right? At moments, that might piss you off. Right? Or it might hold you in awe. How can that be? Or you might just adopt a position, yeah, but. Right? All of those egotistical manipulations to make yourself feel okay. Man, do you need to chant. Why do I say these things? Because this is core Buddhism. Understand that Buddhism is a science of the mind. It's access. It's all access, a pass, if you will, to get into that mind of ours and say, look, there are options. You don't have to be stuck here. That's dealing with, what the heck is in here? That's dealing with karma. The karma that forms you, the idea of a self, is a construct. And how are you constructing it? Are you constructing it as a lesser than? A better than? Right? Understand the concept of equanimity in Buddhism isn't about skin color, race, economics, socioeconomics, bodily differences, one leg shorter than the other, missing limbs, intelligence quotients. It's not about that. It goes all the way down beyond the atom, where everything truly is. Equanimity. So, when he says sincere, and I may rewrite this just to remove that damn word, sincere application of our Buddha-ness, is what it should say, clears that perceptive, and this is where we talk about obstacles, negativity, bad. It's of our own construction. It's our glue that holds us to certain ideas. That's what we're modifying. And whenever we think with those ideas that are stuck, that are negative, that are obstacles, what is that? You're spending energy thinking that way, and therefore you're applying that energy to potential. What are you creating? karma. It's always karma. The momentum of your life is affected, influenced by the way you think about your physical experience. You know what words I'm going to say now, don't you? Attitude, intent. Attitude, how are you thinking about your experience? And how are you then precipitating from those attitudes, because there's 3,000 of them in every single thought moment, to project you into the next moments? This is so essential to your understanding of karma. Do you get that? So when he says sincere application, let's say, will eradicate even fixed karma, he's not saying your legs will become the same length. He's saying that your attitude, the way that you live with, that will be incidental, won't matter to your quality of life. You see, Buddhism is not magic. Whenever it appears magical to you, question the way that it's translated, written, and that you're reading it, because you're not getting it. There is no magic or mysticism in Buddhism. It's a straightforward analysis of the way the mind works. The way we instantiate our thoughts, how we propagate those thoughts, and how we use those thoughts to guide us into the next exploration of being. That's the karma discussion. The 7th volume of the Lotus Sutra states, quote, "This sutra provides good medicine for the ills of the people of Jambudvipa," end quote. You can now translate what that says, can't you? With our discussion so far, you should be able to read that this sutra provides good medicine for the ills of the people of Jambudvipa, says this practice, this method of enlivening your Buddha mind, your full understanding of how all phenomena work, is the solution, medicine, for your thought processes of the entire species, the entire world. Instantiating your Buddha mind equalizes all things so that you can properly utilize your experience in this moment into the next to live fully the potential of life, freeing yourself, liberating you from that glue where we're creating karma that glues us. It's a vicious little loop, isn't it? And we're all in it. We call it samsara. So we're also defining samsara as we're defining karma. As we go into the definition of karma, it will define every aspect of Buddhism because it is that fundamental. So many people don't understand karma. But you will. Perhaps you do already. Thank you. Moving on. These words can be found in no other sutra. All the sacred teachings of Shakyamuni's lifetimes are the golden words of the thus come one, Buddha-ness. Thus come one isn't a label for Shakyamuni. Thus come one it's a process. Thus come one is Renge. It is the achievement of the Buddha mind. Thus come one. Equanimity. It's in the words. Even with translation, it comes right through, doesn't it? For countless kalpas, they have never contained the slightest falsehood, right? Because the engine of life is the engine of life. You can deny it. You can turn it into flying spaghetti monsters. You can mythologize whatever I just said. It doesn't change it. It changes you. You want to believe in monsters and magical powers. That doesn't make them exist. Right? It's like a politician saying the same lie over and over and over again. It doesn't make it true. For countless kalpas, they have never contained the slightest falsehood. The Lotus Sutra is the truth of all truths taught by Shakyamuni Buddha. For it includes his declaration of, quote, honestly discarding expedient means, end quote. In other words, Shakyamuni declares with the Lotus Sutra, okay, I'm done talking to your limitations. I speak now from my own experience. This, whether you choose to use it or not, is the truth. This is how it's done. This is how anyone can also do it. This method, this Myoho Renge Kyo. The law, not the person. The enlightenment, not me. And Shakyamuni makes that really explicit in the lifespan chapter, right? It ain't me. Buddha is the mind of clarity. Please do that. Anyone can. That's the Lotus Sutra. So it continues. Many treasures Buddha confirmed the truth of the Lotus Sutra. This is the story of the Lotus Sutra, right? And all the other Buddhas lent their tongues in testimony, right? They spread the word that any teaching of various Buddhas, emanations, constructions, blah, 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 they are all ultimately the teaching of Shakyamuni Buddha. We learn that also in the treasure tower, which is universal. It's our enlightenment. It's your Buddha, my Buddha. They're not little chunks of Buddha. They are Buddha that we all gain access to from this highly parameterized and limited experience of life. We have a mind that is without limit if we choose to use it. How then could it be false? Moreover, this sutra contains the greatest of all secrets, in other words, not obvious. It tells of a woman who suffers from illness in the last 500-year period of the 2,500 years following Shakyamuni's Buddha's extinction. King Ajatashatru broke out in virulent sores all over his body on the 15th day of the second month of his 50th year. Sounds like shingles. I've had it. I know what that feels like. Ugh, it's horrid. Please get the vaccine. If you're wishy-washy about it at all, I would not wish that pain on anyone. But here we are. Not even the skills of the great physician Jivaka were enough to cure him. Understood? It was fated that he would die on the 7th day of the 3rd month and fall into the great citadel of the hell of insensate suffering. Believe me, you know what that is if you have shingles or have ever had it. I hope you don't. All the pleasures of his 50 years suddenly vanished. Yeah, you ever had a major illness? Yeah, it doesn't matter that you climbed a tree and successfully got down when you were 10 years old. Does any of your successes in life matter when you're writhing in pain in older age? I don't think so. And the sufferings of an entire lifetime were gathered into 21 days. His death was predetermined by his fixed karma. right? In childhood, he had chickenpox. Is it chickenpox or I always mix the two of them up. Anyway, it precedes shingles, right? Because the virus never leaves your body and then can re-emerge in later ages as your immune system changes and so forth, and boom, it comes out as shingles, right? What's the other one? I always forget. Anyway. So built into his RNA, DNA, genealogy, whatever wonderful biological terms you want to use that are dissecting aspects of the human body, this virus, this infection, not everyone who gets that infection in childhood manifests shingles. But many, 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 maybe most, do. So there's a vaccine now available to modify the expression of that virus, hold it at bay. But that's only recent history. So when he says it's fixed karma, he's saying the building blocks for that to happen, to manifest, they're in that freight train of karma. Whether they express or not, and this is where people get very confused in Buddhism, let alone karma, is that by affecting our freight train of karma over time, we can diminish the potential expression of that karma. We don't cure it. We don't get shingles and suddenly decide if I chant enough, I can get rid of shingles. We can affect it, but it's already manifest. Now what we're applying our Buddhist practice to is how we experience that expression. We can modify even fixed karma, even if it's a little late. We may have prevented its expression entirely, but we wouldn't know that unless we really dedicated ourselves to the practice, and there would always be somebody doubting that it was the practice of Buddhism that actually kept it at bay. That's a matter for you to decide. But this is the tripping stone, if you will, for many people who misunderstand karma and the practice of modifying karma. And I hope I've cleared that a little bit for you. And clearing up what Nichiren is actually saying. All the pleasures of 50 years finally vanished. His death was predetermined. But Shakyamuni Buddha reiterated the teaching of the Lotus Sutra, and so that he would see it as new, because, again, some may read the Lotus Sutra and just kind of gloss over it and think they understand it fully. But they're not reading with a critical mind, a self-critical mind. Attitude, intent. So Shakyamuni, in his compassion, said, here's a new sutra for you to read, the Nirvana Sutra. It was actually the Lotus. Because he wanted King Ajatasattu to pay attention. And so he gives him the sutra and conferring it on the king, right? And the king immediately recovered from his illness. And the grave offenses that had burdened his heart vanished like dewdrops. Now that sounds like magic. I admit it. Is that the fault of the translator? Is that the fault of 3,000-year-old storytelling to get a very magical society in India to pay attention? Expedient means? Consider this, because what this says to me, certainly, is that the king immediately recovered from his illness doesn't mean that all of his physical expression of shingles suddenly vanished. Although, as I'm talking about it, I have to remind you, I experienced shingles. And every 5 to 6 months, it would re-express on a different side because what is it? It's lateral. It's not a bilateral disease. In other words, you break out in shingles. When I first felt it was in my shoulders, my back. It's on one side. It expresses. It's hell on earth. You wish your own demise. It's horrible. And then, after a few weeks, it subsides, turns into little tics and annoyance, and then seemingly, and it may take more than a month or 2, maybe 3, and you feel clear of it. Would that fall under the definition of immediately recovered? Because guess what? 5, 6 months later, boom, it hits the other side. All over again, full intensity. But what if in that intermediate period from the first expression to the second, you were able to attain profound enlightenment, really experience the nature of life itself? Might that next expression be far less severe? Does it even matter to this story? When he says the offenses that burdened his heart vanished like dewdrops, offenses, remember what offenses are in Buddhism, certainly in these damn translations. We're talking about negative experiences of karma. Those offenses are our own mind working against our universal understanding of potential. We're getting stuck in the muck. That's not to say the muck can't hurt. It's not to diminish it. It's to alter our perception of it. Right? Why is it that some people feel pain with such drama and the exact same pain inflicted physically on somebody else is experienced totally different? And I'm asking you to consider that it has everything to do with the mind. It's nothing new. There are different forms of teachings that deal with this very thing historically, right? Look up Shakir's. Now, there are neurological differences from person to person that can explain some of these different experiences of pain and what is or isn't pain. That's what the pharmaceutical companies are constantly researching in our brains. So I'm not denying science. I am saying, though, that the mind is critically involved in the experience of different expressions of pain. And isn't that fundamentally what Buddhism is about? Getting rid of pain, anxiety, suffering, stress. They're all different forms of pain, right? So, when pain goes away, one experiences his heart vanish like dewdrops. No longer have shingles. Life is so wonderful. Oh, yeah, because you're reinvestigating what life is like without your desperate succumbing to pain. Where are we time-wise? All right. Next paragraph, more than 1,500 years after Shakyamuni Buddha passed away, entered extinction, there lived a man in China called Chen. It was prophesied that he would die at age 50, but following the great teacher Tendai, he was able to prolong his life by 15 years and live to be 65. Okay. Again, you could say, oh, well, magic, oh, yeah, blah, blah, blah. But if you understand so far what I've been saying about changing your experience of life and how you can alter your attachment to pain, there's a lot of medical journals and white papers that have been around for decades now talking about how that attitude in the mind can actually alter our physical life. It's not new. We had books on it in the 70s and 80s on positive thinking, body imagery. All of this is a discussion on how powerful the mind can alter our lives. And isn't that the fundamental of Buddhism? 3,000 years ago, Shakyamuni knew this. All right, we'll continue in the next video. Hopefully this is making some sense. If I'm going through things too quickly, on the one hand, I want you to be patient and just keep them. I'm going to keep talking about it. We got a whole collection of discussions on this from Nichiren, right? But if it's burning you, it's keeping you from moving on, please comment or send me an email at tlksylvain or tlksylvain@gmail. And let's keep you in the dialogue here, and correct my own words if I'm veering off or being misunderstood for some reason. Maybe I'm not saying it in a way that's universal. I can only work from my own experience, right? But yeah, this is an important topic, so I want to make sure we're all clear here. Namo Myo Renge Kyo. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening to my sometimes meandering explanations. You know, no excuses. I am who I am, and hopefully my experience and my insights are useful for you, and that's the point here. Okay? So use this resource, like and subscribe so others can find us more easily. We can grow the Sangha. Thank you for that. Thank you for those of you who've purchased ebooks or physical, books. Download the podcast; those are free. Use the threefoldlotus.com website. There's a lot of answers there on the core studies page. And I'll see you in the next one. All right. Take care of your health. Namo Myo Renge Kyo. All right. Bye for now.